Hey guys, and welcome back to Regrexit. Brexit England, Northern Ireland, and Eastern Europe. And in Brexit England, this morning Boris Johnson has given his farewell speech on the steps of 10 Downing Street at 7:30 a.m. And there was a lot of people there for his speech. But obviously Boris's speech is just full of lies. Because Boris spoke about obviously he would speak about the vaccine rollout. Now the vaccine rollout, yeah, you really have to put that. Actually, let's start with the purchasing of the vaccines, because Boris Johnson claims that he, right, because of him, because all he done was just basically just gave I can't remember what the lady's name is, but he just basically just gave her the money and said, listen, you have got you've got an open checkbook, right, and just go out and get vaccines, right. So she just spread the money out, right, which is just like, which was just basically just going to like a roulette table, right, and just putting money on each of the numbers, right. So then you know for a fact that you're going to win. Depends on how big you win, but you know for a fact that you're going to win, right? Now, obviously at that time, they already had, there was companies that already had, right, the basically the outline for the vaccine already, right. This was something they already had, right. The vaccine didn't come from absolute scratch, right. They already had the basic foundation for it, so they just had to tweak it. So they knew that they was going to come up with a vaccine for this anyway, right? Now, Boris Johnson obviously claims that that he was the first to and yeah, I think we was the first to actually start issuing the vaccine. But then very shortly after that, yeah, other countries caught us up. With the vaccine rollout, right? The vaccine rollout, right? The praise has to go to the NHS staff, right. The praise doesn't go to politicians. The praise doesn't go to politicians. What you think, just because you've provided the money, right, which is our money, right, which is a thing that any prime minister that was in at the time would have had to have done. Would have had to have said, listen, we need the vaccine. Yeah, unless you had some absolutely crazy right winger, like obviously like Donald Trump, but even he had the vaccine. Even he had a vaccine rollout, right? So it was down to the staff. Those are the people who should get the real praise for that we was outside, banging our pots and pans and clapping our hands and licking down some wood outside our house, right, for the NHS staff. And those are the people, right, who brought us the vaccine rollout. And obviously Boris Johnson spoke about obviously how he got, obviously, well, Brexit. I mean, you say, well, he keeps claiming that he got Brexit done, and as you can tell, right, firstly, Brexit's not done. But what amazes me is how comes so much of the politicians are so scared of Brexit. They're so scared of the Brexit voters, right? And let me tell you, yeah, the Brexit voters now, right, are in a minority, right, but they are the loudest of us all. And that's why people think to themselves, oh yeah, that's why a lot of these politicians are so afraid of them, right? And I don't understand why, because when you've seen so many businesses go bankrupt, right, and you see people having to wait hours, right, to get through customs, right, and you know to yourself, none of this shit was happening to us before. This is only happening because we decided we was going to shoot ourselves in both feet and both hands, because we're a bunch of stupid ass racists in this country, right? And we decided we're going to lose our own freedom of movement, right? I was thinking about this. Losing. Why would a person, anybody, any person with a human brain, think, you know what? I'm prepared to lose my freedom of movement right? Because I don't like those people. I mean, just think, if you look in the animal kingdom, for example, right? Have you ever tried to get a cat, right, into its cat box, right, without a fight, right? Because cats just like, no, I know what you're going to do. You're taking me to the vet, and I'm going to lose my freedom of movement. For the time I'm in the vet, couple of hours, I'm in the vet, and I'm not prepared to lose my freedom of movement for that. So if you try and put me in that little cage, I'm going to scratch you the fuck up. Right? Even the dumbest animals, who's got really small brains, right? You have to trap them, right, to put them in a cage. And we have willfully walked into that cage ourselves, and you said, you know what, just lock that shit behind me and padlock it. Because I don't need no freedom of movement, right? Because there's far too many blacks and Asians and people who speak in a funny language, and I prefer to lose my freedom of movement rather than have them fuckers out. So Boris Johnson got Brexit done. But is Brexit done? That's the question you have to ask. Is Brexit done? Have we got our sovereignty? I don't know. Is there £350 million a week extra going to the NHS? Because they've already told us. They said, oh no, that money's already gone in. It's gone in. It's just been taken up. That's all. And obviously he claimed about the nurses. Was it 50,000 new nurses? And he claims that we're still going to have the 50,000 new nurses by the end of this parliament. Say, well, where are you going to get them from? Unless, because obviously in this country, I don't know how much they train up a year, but it's probably going to be 2,000 or 3,000, I suppose. It's not going to be nowhere near like 50,000. So I'm saying, where are you going to get them from? Because what you got to remember now, is these Tories and Boris Johnson have devalued the pound. I mean, the pound is on its face. It's a good thing, the pound has got the Queen's face on it, because that's what it's on at the moment. It's on its face, right? The pound has never been so low against the dollar. So I don't see how, because these guys have made this country like a hostile, nasty environment. And why is anyone going to come and work here? To be racially abused, firstly, right, and to earn, a weakened pound. That used to be, what used to be the real thing, the real puller, right? Because obviously people used to, if you look in, if you read books about England, or and it's, people really believe, that the English are nice people. English are not nice people, right? And don't argue, right? Because if you're nice people don't lose their own freedom of movement because they hate other motherfuckers. Okay, nice people don't do that shit. Okay, this is it's the difference between the Republicans calling the Democrats fascists and saying, and then things with and you think to yourself, these guys, they don't get it. When you're walking through Charlottesville saying the Jews will not replace us and you and the blacks will not replace us, right? I mean, it's a little bit fascistic. Well, it's really fascistic, but let's just say it's a little bit fascistic. Yeah, just a little. Right? And that's the difference. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, and then with Boris Johnson, we've got Boris Johnson got an 80-seat majority. Now, see, I'm putting Boris Johnson's premiership, right, from the 2019, because that's when he was voted in. Right? Before that, the Tories just like anointed him, just basically said, yes, you can be king, right? But Boris Johnson, right, 80-seat majority. Right, you realise, right, that Thatcher got a good majority, right, and Tony Blair got a good majority, and they both governed for over 10 years. Right, so Boris Johnson really was supposed to govern for over 10 years here. That's the truth. He was supposed to govern for more than 10 years. Right? And with that type of majority, of course you would. You can't, you can't govern for for what is it? What was it? December 2019. Right, December 2019. So what's that? When is it? 2020. So December 2020 is a year. Right. So hold on. Hold on. So December 2022 will be 2 years. It will be virtually 2 years, isn't it? Because we were coming in 2019. Yeah. Imagine that. That's a really short, really short reign for someone who got an 80-seat majority. 80 seats, right? And the man is already been shut the hell out of there. Also, welcome back to By Any Means Necessary. Thank you so much for all your messages sent me, and a special thanks to everybody who signed up to my channel. I feel so blessed with so much people that have signed up, so thank you so much for that. I'll go through all your messages, I'll answer as many as I can, but I will like all your messages for definite. Yeah, so with an 80-seat majority, right, the man is supposed to, right, have been governing, right, for at least 10 years minimum, like 12 years, 3 elections, right, another 2 elections that he should have really, been able to go through with an 80-seat majority, 80 seats. So that must show you, yeah, that what, this guy has got to be really incompetent and absolutely useless, right, for just after this short amount of time for the people of England to say mm-mm. And everything that's happened to Boris Johnson, he's done it to himself, right? Because there's people out there who's they're blaming this, they're blaming that, they're blaming everybody else apart from looking at Boris Johnson and saying, well, you're to blame, like Owen Patterson, Partygate, Chris Pincher. You moved into Downing Street with a bit on the side. I mean, seriously. But our next Prime Minister who we got moving in is also a woman who comes from having an affair, because I'm sure her constituents tried to throw her out a few years ago because she had an affair with a married Tory MP. See, the people of this country, they have no virtue, none at all, right? They claim, there's a Christian Judeo country or whatever the hell they want to call it, right? But none of these people have any Christianity, none of them, right? Especially like Boris Johnson. I don't think Boris Johnson claims to be anyway. He's not like Jacob Rees-Mogg or so I don't think he claims to be anyway. But and obviously, so we've got and Boris Johnson, yeah, I'm quite sure he related to himself as like Cincinnatus. I was like, whoa, hold on there, soldier. Actually, Cincinnatus I think he was a bit of a soldier, wasn't he? Right? Yeah, so I was like, whoa, Boris, seriously, Cincinnatus. So I wrote down a few things that I could remember about Cincinnatus, right? And I could tell you that Cincinnatus was he was in service, yeah, for the greater good, right? That's for definite, right? He had a lot of humility, right? He was a very modest man, because he was a Cincinnatus was a Roman. He was a Roman petition. Yeah, petition. That's how you say it. I think that's how you say it. Petition, and a statesman, right? And he was also a dictator. But I don't think it's not in the dictator in the way that we're thinking about dictator, because I think that is what the Romans used to call their emperors. I think they just used to call them dictators. And now obviously you would have had a few of them who acted like modern day dictators, but Cincinnatus wasn't one of them, and he was said to be a very selfless man who was absolutely full of virtue. the thing that he did have in common with Boris Johnson, though, I know he did have one hell of a lot of kids. Right, Cincinnatus. But for Boris Johnson to relate himself to someone like, but you know, the thing with Boris Johnson, right? He does this all the time, right? He often says, because he's very good at he's very good with Roman with a lot of the Roman stuff, and he's very good with Latin, right? And he often sticks a lot of Latin words in when he makes his speeches, and very often you find yourself having to look up the words he's used in Latin, right? And every single time the meaning is always spot on, always, right? That's the thing with Boris Johnson, is every single time it's absolutely spot on. Well, this Cincinnatus thing, because Boris Johnson and Cincinnatus have nothing in common apart from, right, having loads of kids, right? But when it comes down to them being similar politicians, no. I'm sure Cincinnatus was a politician who came back as well, and took over again, I think. Right, I'm gonna do some reading up on Cincinnatus today to find out, to find out and see. Boris Johnson claims that Putin's war has increased the cost of living crisis. See, these guys, they like to use excuses for all sorts of different stuff, right? No, what's happened in this country, right, is selling off all our gas, all of our utilities, right, and also, right, selling off our gas storage, right, hasn't helped us at all, because if we had some gas storage, then we would be able to store some gas. They might have been able to store up like a year's worth or 6 months worth at least of gas, right, to try and get you through the hardest times. But they haven't. Everything's been short-termist. Everything has been short-termist. Whatever they've done, right, it's always been for the short term. Right, so all of that is coming back to bite them right in the backside right now, right? We've lost so many farms in this country. We've lost so many farms because of the way how the government have been running this country. So we've lost so food production will be down, right? Which means that we have to import so much more. They're probably importing more pork in this country than they've ever done before, right? And all of our pork farms, right, so much of them have gone bankrupt. So all of this stuff is all imported. I mean, we're just one big consumer market for the rest of the world. The rest of the world just look over and say, oh well, if we want to sell, we'll put it over there, and just sell it in Britain. Because that's all we are. We're just one big consumer market for people. Do you know what I mean? Where we should be like, exporting loads of stuff like once upon a time this country would have been doing. But now, right, everything, because we're just importing everything, and that's what I think has more causing that cost of living crisis. The fact that they've sold off all of our utility companies, right? And our utility companies, especially like people like the water companies, they've just like, the reservoirs and things like that. All they've done, right, is they've just built housing on a lot of these things, right? Instead of like, finding new water storage sources. No, I mean, last night and the night before, it's absolutely pissed down with rain. Right, I guarantee you, the amount of rain that fell, right, was more than enough, right, to fill back up all of our storages and all things like that. But they haven't got enough storages, right, and they've got so much leaks. So so much of that water is just going to go completely to waste. A lot of the water that dropped out of the sky last night, right? Because you see, I was out working last night and I got absolutely drenched out there, right? So I can tell you, there's a lot of rain fell like last night and Sunday night. A lot of rain fell, but whether these people, because they haven't they haven't spent the money in the right places. What they've done is, I think what's happened here, especially with the water companies, they've just gone around and just said, well, what we need to do is we have to take all this money and we have to spend it on the infrastructure, Right? And one of the managers, one of the the bosses would have stood up and said, well, just hear me out on this, right? And I just want to make myself heard. What if we take the money and we spread it out amongst ourselves and buy Bentleys, yachts, big houses. We could have country mansions, right? And a place in Barbados. Just putting it out there. We could have a vote on it. That's how I think the conversation has probably gone in the office, and they're just like, So we could spend the money on the infrastructure, or we could spend it on ourselves. That's what you're saying. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I think we should spend it on ourselves. That's how the conversation. That's how the conversation would go with me. That's how my conversation would go. Okay, right? Now I know. Right? That's how the conversation went. Right? And that's why when these people are talking about cost of living crisis and they want to blame everybody else. Yeah, you carry on blaming everybody else, right? Boris Johnson spoke about the 40 hospitals and how he's turned around social care and levelling up, and say, well, that levelling up thing can't really be true, can it? Because I'll tell you why it can't be true. Because the guy who was living next door to you in number 11, well, you know what I mean? Because I think actually Rishi was actually in number 10 and Boris was in number 11 because it's a bigger flat or something like that. But let's just keep it as it should have been, right? The guy living in number 11, right, came out and told us exactly what he's been doing. So how can Boris Johnson claim, do you know what, the levelling up agenda was ever real? Right, when he would have known that Rishi Sunak is taking money from the less well off and giving it to damn rich people. He would have known this. But he's still claiming, the levelling up agenda is going to work. Liz Truss is going to come in and say, oh yeah, we're levelling up, and she's going to come with all that bullshit as well. I don't think that Carrie Johnson really likes Jacob Rees-Mogg. No. Right, because obviously Jacob Rees-Mogg was in the front row this morning when when Boris Johnson was giving his farewell speech, and then obviously he had to go around and greet all these people, to say to them, "I'm going, goodbye. I'm going to go see the Queen now." Right, and if you just see the way how Carrie just basically just blanked Rees-Mogg and his son that was there with him, right, just basically just blanked the two of them, just like. Walked literally. You know what I mean? So I don't think she likes him very much. But then I don't really think that. Well, actually, he's a voted in politician, so obviously there must be some people in this country that like him. But I can never understand what happened to the people in Somerset. I think that all of that, because it rains a lot up there, so I think all of that rainwater, and they get a lot of floods as well. So all that rainwater must have flooded in their brains or something like that to send Jacob Rees-Mogg down to the Houses of Parliament. Right. Mostly, when I look at all of these Tories, none of them should be anywhere near power. None of them. I don't know. I have no clue. Well, actually, I do know how they do it. They do it because you people are a damn bunch of motherfucking racist arses, right? And you vote for them because they say nice things to you about immigration. No, they say the things you want to hear about immigration, because it's not nice things. It's just things you want to hear about immigration, right? So that's the reason why they keep themselves in power, and it's very, very well done. And for them, I say to them, you know what? It's very, very well done, because you know what? They've managed to find their niche, because as the vote proved, right? Now, I mean, I don't know how you look at like a difference of like 21,000 votes, because Rishi Sunak got like about 60,000, say, and Liz Truss got 81,000, right? So that's 100. So 100,000 people voted, right? Or just over 100,000 people. I'm not talking 100,000 people. No, I'm not talking 100,000 people. About 140,000 people voted, right? Now, there's not that much more. I mean, that's probably 3/4 of them, right? Because I think there's probably around 200,000, and that 200,000 they're the people who can afford to pay because most of the working class and the poor Tories, they can't pay to be they can't pay to be a member. They couldn't afford it, right? But they're Tories, but they couldn't afford to be a member. And let me tell you, right, a real Tory, right, would be going to a resort, right, on his holiday or their holidays. We're going on a resort that costs something like £3,500 a night, maybe a week, but generally a night. That's what real Tories will be doing, and these people, right, who vote for the Tories can't afford, right, to pay for a Tory membership, but they're real Tories. So as you see, 140,000, right, and that's not. I think, that, as I've said, I think that's probably about 3/4 of them. So as I said before, there's not that much of them, but they just work their message really, really well. Everything that's wrong in the poor and the working class people who just vote for the Tories, everything that's wrong in your life is my fault, right? And an Asian guy who owns a shop down the road, right? So their fault. And Meghan Markle, right? So their fault, right? But so the levelling up agenda was never really there. But I mean, we move on to Liz. Obviously, Liz Truss now, because Liz Truss in a couple of hours will be, she'll have met the Queen, and she'll get back down here to give a speech outside 10 Downing Street, where obviously now she's going to have to give a speech for the country, because all the speech she's been giving at the moment was just for her. Just for the Tories, just for those 160,000 Tories that voted. That's what that speech was. That's what all of her speeches before. So now, because with Liz Truss, I think the French called it the iron weather sock, which is like, come on, French. I mean, think of something better than that. Right? It makes me want to mix the Iron Lady with the whole weather sock business. Do you know what I mean? Like, but because an iron weather sock, yeah. I mean, you need to, anything like weather related like that needs to be as light as possible. It's really made out of lead or iron, right? But Liz Truss, I mean, the first thing she's probably going to do, yeah, is she's probably just going to come and she's going to cap the utility cost at what we've got now, which is better than the £3,500, but it's still bloody high. And these people are thinking of themselves. A lot of these people are, these new warm banks. These things are not new, Not new at all, right? You've already had people who have been, who go into the library all day because they can't afford to heat their homes. So, this has been going on for a good few years, because there is relative poverty in this country, right? And obviously that, when I say relative, that poverty is, because I want to say there's poverty, because people are like, well, poverty. No, there's not poverty over here. People, they've got a flipping flat screen TV and a smartphone. Bloody hell. Seriously. Right, you get a fucking flat screen TV off of eBay, right, for probably 60 or 70 quid. You can do, right? So I never, I don't, when they're talking like that, I always just put it down to relative poverty, because when you're looking around you, right, if you can't afford to live like the rest of the people in the country, right, then you're in a relative poverty for yourself, which is not which wouldn't be a poverty in in countries where we see kids with flies in their face. Do you know what I mean? But it's relative to the country we're in. So so there's a lot of people already, right, staying in libraries all day or walking around in museums all day. People riding around on buses. I mean, in London, obviously, if you're going to be homeless, that's one of the best places you're going to be is in a city like London, because you have got a 24-hour traffic system, 24-hour transport system. Right now, you've got a lot of people who will get on a bus, because you've got a lot of buses who do really long routes. In London, so they'll get on the bus. The bus might have a 2, 3 or 4 hour route, so they get on there and they can sleep on the bus. Right? That's been going on in this country for the longest of times, right? Where you've got people who can't afford. Obviously, some people, they haven't got, they might be homeless. So that's what they do. They live on buses, and in the daytime they might live on trains where they're just up and down and just fall asleep, and they can just fall asleep on there, because obviously it's a bit of a safe, much more of a safer environment, because there's cameras on there, and already people sleeping outside of shops, and there's evil people who just go up and just do all sorts of different nonsense to people who are so down on their luck that they're sleeping on the streets, right? And then you've got some fucking drunken fool who'll go and piss on them, do you know what I mean? Or go and beat them up, or even set them on fucking fire. Do you know what I mean? Just, you think to yourself, what you. A lot of these people just understand, it's just really hard to understand these people. But Liz Truss, anyway. Liz Truss, so far, has insulted the Scots. Right, she's told the French that that she doesn't trust them. So it's not really a good start. Do you know what I mean? Because when she insulted Nicola Sturgeon, right, a lot of the Scottish people took that as an insult to them, and obviously, it doesn't help. When Boris Johnson said this morning how strong the union was. No, well, I have to beg to differ with you. The union's in the weakest place it's ever been in. Right? It's a good thing Boris Johnson's going, because Boris Johnson was the biggest gift to Nicola Sturgeon there is. But with Liz Truss talking the way she is, I mean, the Scots, they're not going to be able to hold back. They'll probably hold their own referendum and just say, listen, we're just doing this anyway. You can't tell us what to do no longer. We're going to do this. What the fuck are you going to do? So Nicola Sturgeon really needs to she really needs to try and smooth that over with the Scots. But as Sergei Redroff said, the woman is a dummy. Because that's what he called her just not even that long ago. Because it was just before the war, innit? Because she went and saw him, right? And he said that she was sat there not taking in anything that he was saying. He said that this woman is an absolute dummy. Anyway, let's go over to let's go internationally quickly, yeah, because one of these brothers in Canada has been found dead, but the police are still on the hunt for the other one, because the brothers who went and stabbed up all them people. So one of them is have been found. One of them he's been found dead, and the other one is still on the run, still dangerously on the run, I should say. And Melania Trump is more upset, right, that people think that she shares a room with Donald Trump rather than the FBI going through her knicker drawer, because they went through her drawers. Yeah, right. And she's upset about that, but she's much more upset, right, that people think that her and Donald Trump is sharing a room. And I say, well, that's a good marriage, isn't it? Right. But we've always known that Melania hates Donald Trump anyway. But then who wouldn't? If you're married to someone like Donald Trump, who the hell wouldn't hate his ass? And I believe we've had 4 people arrested, right, in relation to this shooting of this 9-year-old child in Liverpool, right. I think that 2 of them have been arrested for assisting an offender, right, which means that the police must be pretty. They must think that one of these people that's been arrested, right, is certainly the gunman, because if that's when those are the charges. If the police are after someone like that and it's all over the TV, right, and you help that person in any way, right, then they will charge you with assisting an offender, right? Whatever the case, whether you're family with that person, doesn't matter. That's what you're going to be charged with. Right. So they're I know they're holding a couple of these guys on assisting an offender, and I don't know what they're holding the other guy for. So they must be holding him for the actual shooting. So whether or not it's actually him, but a lot of times with these things, yeah, believe me, right, if you do something like that, right, the only thing you can do, right, is not tell anybody, because the minute you tell one person that you was involved in that, the police are going to find out, right? Because people phone the police, right? They phone the police anonymously, and they can phone Crime Stoppers and all those things nowadays, right? Which means if you phone Crime Stoppers, yeah, your call's not going to be traced. Right, you can phone Crime Stoppers absolutely anonymously. Right, if you phone the police, right, if you phone the police and speak to a police officer, right, they can trace that number. Obviously, if you use a telephone box or you use like a basher phone, then obviously it's a bit more difficult. But believe me, all those things they can trace. Right, so they can come. If you phone and said, listen, I know who that you can find that the police turn up at your door. But if you phone Crime Stoppers, no. Right, so these guys, it just looks like because I know they was given another like 36 hours to speak to these guys, and whether or not there's going to be some charges brought, there could well be, but we'll just have to see. And going back internationally for a minute, I don't know if you saw what happened to the Argentine Prime Minister. Like, she was greeting some people, and all of a sudden, like, out of nowhere, I mean, she was just on the street greeting these people. Right, there's thousands of people there, I think, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a gun just appeared, right, and it was like there, right, and the guy pulled the trigger, and you actually heard the firing pin, because it's the last thing that you hear just before your ass gets shot, right. So a lot of times you won't hear the actual blast, the gun blast, but you'll hear the fire, especially if it's close. That's what you hear, the firing pin, and then obviously you're dead, right? But everyone heard the firing pin, right? So this gun jammed. Do you know what I mean, right? And when I tell you, she was so lucky that the gun jammed, just unbelievably. But if you see how the gun just appeared, because that must have been like a smartphone or whatever, and if you see how the gun just appeared, boom, just like that, you know. But going back to Boris Johnson, said that they changed the rules halfway through, and I wanted to know what he meant by that. I'm sure he's talking about like when he won the vote of no confidence. But I'm sure that's what he's talking about, where he said that they changed the rules halfway through. I forgot to mention that earlier. But that's, I really wanted to know what he actually meant by that when he said that. What exactly what he meant by that. Priti Patel has resigned. As soon as Liz Truss takes over, Priti Patel is out of there. But you know something, yeah? That might not be too much of a good thing, because I think, yeah, that Liz Truss is going to put Suella Braverman in. Right? And Suella Braverman, right, is like Priti Patel on steroids. Right, when I tell you, yeah, she is really up for the culture wars, right? And because that's what the Tories are going to be pushing a lot of. They're going to be pushing a lot of culture wars, right? And she, you see how Priti Patel just took up the baton and run with the culture wars. Well, this Suella Braverman is going to be exactly the same, and she is going to fly with this culture wars, right? Because she is much more evil than Priti Patel, right? And if you think, right, that that you think that did I just say if you think? What the hell am I, Irish? Right? And if you think, right, that because she will try and leave the European Court of Human Rights, she will try and leave it, Suella Braverman, but because she is off key. Right, when it comes down to it, yeah, this woman is psycho. Right, she is an absolute nutter. Right, when it comes down to it, original nutter. Right, and Nadine Dorries has resigned. I believe that Nadine Dorries, right, knows something that we don't know, and her ass is going to go straight into the House of Lords. Oh God, Baroness Norris, serious. But actually, because she's actually an author, right? And she sold a good few million books. So I mean, I would prefer her to go to the House of Lords because of her because she's an author, rather than because of her work in politics. Because her work in politics has been completely crap. But we might be stuck with Jacob Rees-Mogg, and they're probably going to bring like John Redwood and David Frost. Do you know what I mean? These are the people, because she hasn't really got much to choose from. I mean, she's got like a couple of elder statesmen like the crackhead Michael Gove. Now, Michael Gove, right, although I think he's a dickhead, he is quite a good politician, even though he's a dick, right? But he was a full-fledged backer of Rishi Sunak, so I don't think she's going to really like that. And then, all right, let's move on to some Brexit quickly. A Brexit trade war is the last thing the UK needs, warns Ireland. And as Liz Truss is coming in, right, and Liz Truss is like an iron weather sock or a dummy, then I would say that we may well have a trade war because she's stupid enough to think that this country can go up against the EU in a trade war. She's stupid enough to actually think that, so there's a good chance that we could have some type of trade war with the EU, but it will be the shortest ever lived trade war, because very shortly after we start, we'll be at the EU's door begging them to stop the trade war. The EU have called on Liz Truss to abide by the Brexit deal. And I said to the EU, good bloody luck with that, because I don't think you realise that Liz Truss is an iron weather sock, right, and a dummy. These are not my words. These are other people's. Other people have said this about her. I'm just saying what they've said. But do I think the same thing? Yes, I do. And Liz Truss has promised to unshackle the City of London. I have a feeling, right, that Liz Truss is a bit like Tim Martin, and she doesn't understand Brexit. Right? She hasn't got to grips with what the whole Brexit thing means, right? Because you say, well, you're going to unshackle the City of London, but to who? Because you have to understand, right, that however these guys want to work, if they want to work in the EU, then it's the EU's rules they have to abide by. They can't implement any rules. Britain cannot not one rule. There's no rules at all. Not even a small one. Right? Not even one that they say, you know what? Okay, look, you have that virtual rule. Just have a virtual one, and just say that you've got a little rule. Yeah. No, not even that. Not even a smidgen. Right? Not even like the slimmest slice, right, of power do we have, right, to dictate to the EU. Nothing, nada, nil, nilch. Right? That is what we can tell the EU. Right? The EU can just say to us, well, go away. We're sorry. We'll do whatever you want us to do. Anyway, guys, look, I've been on for 40 odd minutes, and I have to bow out of here. Right? And this is my second day doing 40 odd minutes, and I have to ask for your forgiveness again. But anyway, guys, I'm bowing out of here. This, my friends, is By Any Means Necessary. I'm the MC John Ribbs. It was really nice to speak to you guys. Comments below.